Dear friends, a message in honor of this Shabbos, the special Shabbos, where we're starting to read Parshas and Seder of Vayikra. I'd like to dedicate this message to the memory of a dear friend, Rabbi Yaakov Yehuda Yaakov Refson, Olav Shalom, the Dayan of Leeds. Although we're quite a couple of years apart in age, but we were good friends. And the story was like this. I was in yeshiva in Manchester at the age of 16 when I was kicked out of yeshiva. Obviously it wasn't for mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. It was for a good reason. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go home. So I had a friend in Manchester. He gave me a loan for £100. And I asked my friend Yossi to call his parents. Maybe I could spend some time in their house. I bought a ticket on the train. I think it was 71 British pounds. When I got to Leeds, there was a Yid with a white beard. It was Rabbi Yehuda Yaakov Refson. I was attached to him for 2 weeks. I learned a lot from this remarkable person. He gave me the history of Leeds. I went with him to the Bezdin, the place where there were Chosheve, Rabbonim, and Dayanim before him. He was the Av Bezdin. I also went with him to the abattoir, to other places, as he was the Rav of the city. I remember a specific incident in the abattoir where he was standing and he took off his shoes and he put on his boots and he was standing and tying it up. So I said, Rabbi Refson, maybe you'd like to sit down or I can give you a hand. He said, no. He said, Yochanan, don't you know the difference of a bachur and a zokin, an old man and a young man? What's the difference of an old man and a young man? So actually it's in the Rambam now that we're learning, that we recently learned, that a young man is yoyre kechetz. He could shoot his arrows and he shoots them, bow and arrows, very quick. And an old man can't. It's relevant to the dinim of mikveh and so on. If the shechvazer is yoyre kechetz, it can go immediately to the mikveh. What's the siman if a person is a zokin or a bachur? The Rambam says if he could stand and tie up his shoes. If he has to lean, he's a zokin. So he smiled to me as if, I have one over you. I learned a lot from Rabbi Refson. Rabbi Refson, it wasn't so familiar for me. He was in the public. He had a very strong stature. At home, he was so warm to his wife. The words of endearments he would use to his wife. It taught me a lifelong lesson. A couple of years ago, I met him at the oil, and I thanked him for those 2 weeks, which were critical 2 weeks in my life. When I went back to Manchester, I asked Mechila by the Rosh Yeshiva. I went back into Yeshiva, started a chavrusa with the Rosh Yeshiva's son, actually, that lasted for 10 years, and was very successful. So I thanked Rabbi Refson, and he said, listen, Yochanan, you don't imagine, but really you taught me a lot. A fresh kid from Malay Torah with tenacity, who was curious, full of energy, full of youth. I learned a lot from you. So I dedicate tonight's message to my dear friend, Rabbi Refson, Dayan Refson of Leeds. And Davisha should give a lot of koyach and chizuk to his son, Abba and Yossi, and to his wonderful wife. And I'm sure he's now b'mailas kadoshim u'tahorim, b'mailas tzadikim v'chasidim, and he should demitz Hashem from this place. He should be a guta better for his family and for Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe, for many years, had this campaign of Tzidei Chabad youth organization. The Rebbe would say that you don't have to be actually young at age. You have to be young in your mind to join the Tzidei Chabad. My friends, tonight, I implore you to join the youth club of Tzidei Chabad. They say that the young people don't have much risk in this dreadful coronavirus. So, the way to be safe, join the youth. How do we join the youth? Be curious, full of energy, youthful, in spiritual growth. Don't shy away from trying something that you didn't try till recently. An old person says, you can't talk, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. But to be youthful, to try new tricks, to try new things that we didn't do till now, if it may be kavanah and tefillah, if it's hizbonenus, if it's between us and another human being, or between us and the Ribono Shel Olam, something quantitative that we could take upon ourselves, that we're curious like a child to try something new, that we have the tenacity to try something new. We're starting to read Vayikra, and Vayikra is what we learn with little children. Tanchuma says that a little child, the first thing when you learn Chumash is you start with Vayikra. Why is it called Vayikra? It's a strange name for a book. It's the first word, Vayikra, Al Moshe. The Ramban, in fact, calls it Sefer HaKorbanos, the book of Korbanos. But why is it called by Klal Yisrael? The common meaning is to call it Sefer Vayikra. Zokt the Lubavitcher Rebbe Nasicha. Vayikra doesn't say who is calling. Rashi says it's a kriya shel chiba. It's a call of love. Who is calling? The Ribono Shel Olam. The lo yisramiz belushum ois v'koitz. The Eibishter that can't be quantified in any name. Not even the highest name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. The Eibishter himself. When the Eibishter himself calls out to a Jew, the deepest part of the Jew wakes up. The nitzutz boide in the neshama, says the Rebbe. Just sharing the story with you, I think I shared it in the past. A story I heard several times from my grandfather, Olav Shalom. And tonight is the yahrzeit, 100th yahrzeit of the Rebbe Rashab. And my grandfather had the schus to live in the house after the Rebbe Rashab passed away in Beis Nissen 100 years ago. The Frierdiker Rebbe wrote a letter to my great-grandfather saying that he can't carry on if he won't come. So my Alter Zayda packed up his stuff. He was then in Yekaterinoslav in the Dnieper, and he came quickly to the home of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and eventually his family joined him also. My Zayda actually was there in a stove a couple of years ago, and he showed exactly every room, what happened in that room, which room he lived in, his parents lived in. The upstairs floor was the Frierdiker Rebbe, was the Rebbe Rashab's cabinet, his Chedi Yechidas, and so on. So he was a child and he was a wild kid, and he said he would go and upstairs on the second floor was the Frierdiker Rebbe's room, and he would try to open the door and see if it's opened. And one day he put his hand on the handle and the door swung open. The Frierdiker Rebbe was sitting there. The Frierdiker Rebbe called him over, put him on his lap, and he said, Mendel, tell me, where is your Yetzer Tov? So he pointed to the right side of his heart. Mendel, where's your Yetzer Hara? He pointed to the left side of his heart. Mendel, where is the neshama? He pointed to his head, to his brain. And Mendel, what's in the neshama? Kid picked up his hands. I don't know. Well, you must know, said the Frierdiker Rebbe. Du musst wissen. In the neshama da neshamala. Okay. He ran out of the room, and in front of the Frierdiker Rebbe's room, there was a hallway, and then there's a big glass. That's if you go there today, you'll see it. So if you're standing or sitting in the courtyard, you could see what's going on. The Bochrim in the yeshiva saw a little kid running out the Frierdiker Rebbe's room. They called him down, and they picked him up on their hands, and they said, what happened? And he told them what the Frierdiker Rebbe said, and he said he remembered all night the Bochrim were bringing and talking about it. What did the Frierdiker Rebbe mean? You must know. And what's the neshama that's in the neshama? Is it that Chazal say Chamish Shemes Nikralo Nefesh Ruach Neshama Chai Yechida? There's 5 levels of the neshama. Highest level is Yechida. Chassidus says something even deeper. There's a nitzutz boire in the Yechida. That's the neshama in the neshama. So Vayikra, when the Eibishter himself calls, it awakens that neshama, that youthful neshama that's in the neshama. Zok the Rebbe, incidentally in today's Chitas, the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Zayin in Tanya. Now, why is it called Kriyas HaTorah? When you read the Torah, it's called Kriyas HaTorah. It's like Adam HaKoyres Chaveri, Ukuben HaKoyre Liaviv. Like a person who's calling out to his friend, or a child who's calling out to his father. Why does the Alter Rebbe give the two examples? When you have a relationship with a friend, it's a logical relationship. There's something that you find in each other. It's a son and a father is super rational. Furthermore, you can't be a father if you don't have a son. So Chazal say that tzaddikim, the Eibishter rides on the tzaddikim, kilu they are makova, but it's even deeper than that. What makes the Eibishter our father? Because we're his children. So Vayikra means that the Yid calls to the Eibishter, and the Eibishter calls to the Yid, and because it comes from the depth of the Eibishter, it touches the depth of the Yid, and when the Yid calls from his depth, it touches the depth of the Eibishter. On Pesach, the minhag is that 4 questions are asked originally, and first, or if everyone reads it, the youngest reads it first. My wife was just reading a book for the children, and the youngest is always complaining why she's last. So she was reading a book about this kid who's complaining that why is it Chavi, Zahavi, and Mechi and Rechi, and they're all first, and I'm last. I'm Cherry, I'm last. So, but Mommy said that when it comes to the Seder, you're going to be first. What's the reason that the Seder, the youngest, is first? We learned about this last year. Because Kinar Yisrael ve'oyaveyu. We want to awaken by the Eibishter that love from a father to a little child. When a child is 2 or 3 years old, they could be a rascal. They're all trying, they're experimental, they're trying to do this and that. And even if it's not the up and up, but we give them a pass. Because we love them, because they're so sweet and they're so cute. We try to awaken by the Rebbeinu Shalom, even if we're not up and up where we belong, but we are your child. We are your child. So therefore, please turn to us in the time of need. So that's the message of going into the Chumash Vayikra. The reason why it's not called Sefer HaKorbanos, even though Korbanos, the idea of a korban means kiruv, coming close to the Eibishter, and the Ramban calls it the Sefer HaKorbanos. It's the heart and soul of Torah. But the minhag is to call it Sefer Vayikra. Vayikra means Hashem is calling, a call of love. The Eibishter himself, the Lo Yisrames B'Shemois V'Koitz, and that touches the etzem of a Yid. And the same thing the other way around. When we call the Eibishter, and we tell him, we are your child, Kinar Yisrael Ve'oyaveyu. That awakens the Ava, the love from the Eibishter to us. And we have to decide that we're joining the youth club of Beis Menachem Mendel. We're the youth, we're the Tzirei Chabad. So therefore we will be young and we will be healthy. We have to try out every possible method in Avodas Hashem. And the Eibishter, we have to turn to the Eibishter, Kenar Yisrael Ve'oveyu, and implore the Eibishter to finally show his love to the Yidden, Bevinyan, Beis HaMikdash HaShlishi, V'sham Noichal Min Azvachim, Min Apsachim. From tonight, there's still enough time that we should go to Eretz Yisrael and to make the Pora Aduma and to bring the Korban Pesach in its right time. The Eibishter help that this year we should actually be bringing the Korban Pesach Yerushalayim Irakoides Bevias Mashiach Tzedkenu. Good night. Have a good Shabbos.